What's good? I hope everybody had a blessed day. And thank you for tuning in, taking your time to chill with me and go over some more Black history from a biblical perspective. Oh, yeah, go ahead and get into the fit. Hey, gotta, dress up for y'all. Every now and then show y'all ain't dealing with no bum. But anyway, I hope y'all having a good day. Today was a blessed day for me as every day. And I just pretty much chilled today, had the day off. Thank God for that. And just sending prayers out to people in the country. I know it's tough times going on in the country right now with the leadership that is coming into power. Um, prayers going up, man, for everyone. Definitely going to be a interesting 4 years, but I know that I will live and not die. I will survive. That's just me. So, picking up where I left off in the occupation of Israel, which is Israel are the Negroes, natives, and Latinos, but specifically speaking about the Negroes here, black folk, my kinfolk. Yeah, man, today is just, my Aunt Irene would say, any day above ground is a good day. So, and I believe that. I definitely believe that. I woke up in my right mind, took a shower, got dressed, was blessed to go get me something to eat, had the money to do so. I'm grateful for everything that I have. I don't take nothing for granted. Um, so, yeah. And right now I'm doing this. I do have another video that I am working on. It's probably not going to be liked, but it definitely needs to be said as I've been saying it, but that's another video for another day. So continuing on where I left off, I was talking about the occupation of Israel, and now we're going into under the Islamic Empire, 638 AD through 1099 AD. Alright, and so in 638 AD, the Byzantine Empire lost control of the Levant. The Arab Islamic Empire under Caliph Omar conquered Jerusalem and the lands of Mesopotamia, Syria, Palestine, and Egypt. They invited the Israelites to return after having been expelled by various Christian and Roman rulers. Under the various regimes before Caliph Omar, the Israelites suffered massacres and were forced to flee the inland villages towards the coast. They were subsequently induced to return inland after the coastal towns had been destroyed. Nevertheless, the Israelites still controlled much of the commerce in Palestine/Israel. According to Arab geographer al-Muqaddasi, the converts worked as the assayers of coins, the dyers, the tanners, and the bankers in the community. During the Fatimid period, many Jewish officials served in the regime. In the first part of the Arab period, the majority of the population were Christians. The construction of the Dome of the Rock in 691 AD, the first Muslim shrine and the first major Islamic public building, was meant to counterbalance the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Both the Dome of the Rock and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre have concentric plans, and their diameters are identical, but the Dome of the Rock is decorated with anti-Trinitarian Quranic quotations. Initially, Muslims, like Jews of Arabia, faced Jerusalem to pray. However, when the Jews who lived in Medina at the time resisted both religious and political cooperation with the Muslims and did not accept Muhammad's prophetic claims, a new revelation from Allah directed Muhammad to shift the center of prayer to Mecca. The Dome of the Rock was built near the area formerly occupied by Herod's temple and close to the Wailing Wall, the last remnant of Solomon's temple. And by the way, in that Wailing Wall where they be, that is not even scriptural. You know, that's that hedge around the Most High's law. That's not even scriptural. That's how you know that those are not the people. Aside from the curls that be by their ears, that you know those are mimicking dreadlocks because they can't get their hair to lock. They get that from number 6, you know, but they can't get their hair to lock. Anyway, in building the Dome of the Rock, the earliest Arab rulers of Palestine, Israel, expressed their reverence for Jerusalem, city of the prophets from Abraham and Moses to Yeshua, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, culminating with Muhammad, as the Muslims will say, the seal of the prophets. The Dome of the Rock is the oldest existing Islamic monument in the world, and for most, still the greatest. Yeah, for them, you know, because it was constructed in 691 AD. AD. So there was no BC. You know what it was BC? It was Persian mythology. And they had 364 gods that they worshiped for each day of the year. But at least they knew it was 364 days and not 365. At least they did know that. I mean, so, but yeah, Persian mythology, and they worship 364 gods, one god per day for for a whole year. Each day, different god. Catholic Church came in and said, no, we're gonna dwindle all those gods down into one. Gonna name her Allah, because go watch my Truth About Islam video. Go watch my Truth About Islam video. I've already discussed this. Moving on. In the Crusaders, Roman Catholic Europeans, period 1099 AD through 1260 AD. In 1099 AD, along with other inhabitants of the land, the impostor faith Jewish, Sephardi Jewish converts vigorously defended Jerusalem against the Crusaders. When the city fell, the Crusaders gathered them in a synagogue and set it alight. In Haifa, the Jews almost single-handedly defended the town against the Crusaders, holding out for a whole month, June through July 1099 AD. At this time, there were Jewish communities scattered all over the country, including Jerusalem, Tiberias, Ramleh, Ashkelon, Caesarea, and Gaza. Jewish impostors were not allowed to hold land in the Crusader period, but concentrated their efforts on the commerce in the coastal towns during times of quiescence. Most of them were artisans, glassblowers in Sidon, furriers, and dyers in Jerusalem. During this period, the Masoretes of Tiberias established the Hebrew language orthography, or Nikud. Let me read that again. During this time period, the Masoretes of Tiberias established the Hebrew language orthography, or Nikud, a system of diacritical vowel points used in the Hebrew alphabet. At this time, a large volume of Piyutim and Midrashim originated in Palestine. The Masoretes were non-Israelite scribes who converted to the debased faith of Pharisaic Talmudism. Oh, Talmud is horrible. Talmud and the Kabbalah. Man, two of the most evil books talk about Christ so bad. Talk about they got Christ in hell, boiling him in something. In these Jewish books, this is what they believe about Christ. Not me. I don't believe that. I believe Christ came. He was in the flesh. He walked this earth. They nailed him to the cross. He went into the tomb on Saturday. He was resurrected on Tuesday. In his body. In his same body. You can see the holes in his hand. That's what I believe about Christ. He came in the flesh. He walked the earth. But the Jewish people over in Israel, they don't believe that. This creed, in grouping with Babylonian mysticism, was practiced in the temple that was constructed under the command of the Edomite king Herod. The Masoretes were groups of mostly Karaite scribes and scholars working between the 7th and 11th centuries, based primarily in present-day Israel in the cities of Tiberias and Jerusalem, as well as in Iraq, Babylonia. Each group compiled a system of pronunciation and grammatical guides in the form of diacritical notes on the external form of the biblical text in an attempt to fix the pronunciation, paragraph and verse divisions and cancellation of the Hebrew scriptures, the Tanakh, for the worldwide Jewish Khazarian community. No, what it was, okay, because they speak German. They don't speak Hebrew. So they couldn't grasp Hebrew. They couldn't understand Hebrew. So what they did was they took Hebrew and they watered it down. They came up with their own little, this what this means, and over time it became what I just, cancellation is the ritual chanting of readings from the Hebrew Bible in synagogue services. No, having to so-called fix the pronunciation, paragraph, and verse divisions and cancellation of the Hebrew scriptures with the system of pronunciation and grammatical guides is a clear sign that the converts were not the true Israelites. They could not understand the Hebrew scriptures in its original form. They don't speak the Paleo Hebrew in which all the biblical patriarchs spoke, from Adam all the way up to when Christ came in the flesh. The impostor Jewish speak Yiddish. No, the true Israelites were never told to chant, cancellation, anything from the Hebrew scriptures. In the Mamluk period, 1260 AD through 1517 AD. In the years 1260 AD through 1516 AD, Palestine was part of the empire of the Mamluks, who ruled first from Turkey, then from Egypt. War and uprisings, bloodshed and destruction followed. Maimonides, the Jewish impostors, Sephardic, suffered persecution and humiliation, but the surviving records cite at least 30 Jewish urban and rural communities at the opening of the 16th century. A notable event during the period was the settlement of the Nachmanides in the old city of Jerusalem in 1267 AD, which since then a continuous Jewish Khazarian presence existed in Jerusalem until modern day occupation of Jordan in 1948 AD. A Mamluk is of Turkish stock or rule and was a soldier or of slave origin and was a soldier of slave origin. The Mamluk phenomenon, as David Ayalon dubbed the creation of the specific warrior class, was of great political importance and was extraordinarily long-lived, lasting from the 9th to 19th century AD. Over time, Mamluks became a powerful military caste in various Muslim societies, particularly in Egypt, but also in the Levant, Iraq, and India, and Mamluks held political and military power. In some cases, they attained the rank of sultan, while in others, they held regional power as emirs or beys. Most notably, Mamluk factions seized the sultanate for themselves in Egypt and Syria in a period known as the Mamluk Sultanate, 1250 AD through 1517 AD. The Mamluk Sultanate famously beat back the Mongols at the Battle of Ain Jalut and fought the Crusaders, effectively driving them out from the Levant by 1291 and officially in 1302, ending the era of the Crusades. They were of varied ancestry, but were often Kipchak, Turks, Cumans, depending on the period and region in question. While Mamluks were purchased, their status was above ordinary slaves, who were not allowed to carry weapons or perform certain tasks. In places such as Egypt, from the Ayyubid dynasty to the time of Muhammad Ali of Egypt, Mamluks were considered to be true lords with social status above freeborn Muslims. In the Ottoman period, 1517 AD through 1917 AD, the Sultan was the sole absolute regent, head of state, and head of government of the empire, at least officially, through though often much power shifted de facto to other officials, especially the Grand Vizier. The Jewish Sephardi impostors population of the Palestine region was at approximately 10,000 during the first half century of the Ottoman rule. Bold development projects for reviving the Holy Land were conceived by Jewish courtiers in Constantinople, such as Don Garcia Mendez and Don Joseph Nasi. Jerusalem, Tiberias, and above all, Safad became centers of Jewish spiritual and commercial activity. Many of the gains achieved by Islamic Jewry during the 16th century was lost over the next 200 years. As Ottoman rule became more inefficient, corrupt, and religiously conservative, at the height of its power in the 16th and 17th centuries, it controlled territory in southeastern Europe, southwestern Asia, and North Africa. The Ottoman Empire contained 29 provinces and numerous vassal states, some of which were later absorbed into the empire, while others were granted several types of autonomy during the course of the centuries. The empire also temporarily gained authority over distant overseas lands through declarations of allegiance to the Ottoman Sultan and Caliph, such as the declaration by the Sultan of Akkay in 1565, or through temporary acquisitions of islands such as Lanzarote in the Atlantic Ocean in 1585. 30 Jewish Sephardi impostor Jewish community exists at the time in Haifa, Shechem, Hebron, Ramleh, Jaffa, Gaza, Jerusalem, and many in the north. The city of Safed became a spiritual center. Kabbalah flourished among Sephardi Jews, imposters, which are converts. Kabbalah flourished among Sephardi Jewish, which are converts, and Safed even before the arrival of Isaac Luria, known as the Ari, its most famous resident. Note, between 1882 and 1948, a series of Jewish Khazarian migrations to what is the modern nation of Israel, known as Aliyah's commenced, started. These migrations preceded the Zionist period. British Mandate. 1917 through 1948. In 1917, at the end of World War I, Israel, known at the time as southwestern Syria, changed hands from the defeated Ottoman Empire to the occupying British forces. The United Kingdom was granted control of Palestine, today's Israel, West Bank, Gaza Strip, and Jordan, by the Versailles Peace Conference, which established the League of Nations in 1919. Name was changed to the United Nations later, and appointed Herbert Samuel, a former Postmaster General in the British Cabinet, who was instrumental in drafting the Balfour Declaration, the next picture you see, as its first High Commissioner in Palestine. The Balfour Declaration is a scam. It's a scam. The Balfour Declaration is a scam. I'm letting you know that right now. Ugh. During World War I, the British had made two promises regarding territory in the Middle East. Britain had promised the local Arabs through Lawrence of Arabia independence for a united Arab country covering most of the Arab Middle East in exchange for their supporting the British. Britain had promised to create and foster a Jewish national home as laid out in the Balfour Declaration in 1917. In 1947, following increasing levels of violence, the British government withdrew from Palestine. The proposed 1947 UN Partition Plan would have split the mandate in two states, Jewish and Arab, giving more than half the land area to the Jewish and Pashto Jewish, Sephardic, and Khazars. Side note, both of these Jewish groups, Sephardic and Khazars, are imposters, but they differ from each other. Speaking about the Sephardic bastards who claim to be more Jewish than the Khazars because the Sephardic were placed in the land first. Sephards make up 2%, and the Khazars, serpent people, make up the other 98% of the imposter Jewish population. Neither one of them are related. Oh, well, neither one of them are related to the promises. Neither one of them are related to the promises. Let me reread my side note again. I'm going to start from the beginning. Side note, both of these Jewish groups, Sephardic and Khazars, are imposters, but they differ from each other. Speaking about the Sephardic bastards who claim to be more Jewish than the Khazars because the Sephardic were placed in the land first and they come from Esau. Sephards make up 2% and the Khazars, serpent people, make up the other 98% of the imposter Jewish population. Khazars are not related by blood to the original children of Israel. Neither are they related to Moses, Aaron, or any of the tribes of Israel. The Sephardic bastards are converts as well, but they come from Esau, so they are Semitic. They have no ties to the promises. They were placed in the land before the Khazars came. That's their half-truth. They were in the land first, after we, the true children of Israel, were already exiled. You can read about the imposter Jewish bastards being placed in the land in 2 Kings 17, 18 through 41, King James Version. When you read this passage, read it slowly and carefully. And in verse 24, notice the word Sepharvaim. That is them damn Sephardic imposters. These are the people who became Pharisees that Christ went back and forth with in John 8, King James Version. They were mad because they knew that Christ knew they were imposters. Notice when they were placed in the land, they were eaten by lions because they did not know how to fear the Lord, keep the law. The law has specific laws about how to farm the land and how to live on the land. That is the manner of the God of the land in verse 26. They, imposter Jewish, were getting tore up so bad that the king of Assyria Shalmaneser had to get a few priests, Levi, from the real children of Israel to come show the impostors how to follow the commandments in verse 27. After the bastards learned how to keep the law, they started going back to their evil ways, worshiping their gods, and barely doing enough to stay in the land. They are still doing evil, such as they have the biggest gay prides and orgies, child organ sacrifices, and etc. in the land of Israel today. But they make the general public think they are Hebrew when they are not. Majority of them do not even believe in Christ. The Khazars are even worse. They came later, around 1948. Carry on. Feeling betrayed immediately following the adoption of the partition plan by the United Nations General Assembly, the Palestinian Arab leadership rejected the plan to create the as yet unnamed Jewish state and launched what many called a guerrilla war. On May 14, 1948, one day before the end of the British Mandate of Palestine, the leaders of the Jewish community in Palestine, led by Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion, made a declaration of independence, and the false state of Israel was established on the partition by UNSCOP, UNSCOP, for the Jewish state. The Balfour Declaration, Israel's founding document, November 2nd, 1917, Foreign Office, November 2nd, 1917. Dear Lord Rothschild, know anything about the Rothschilds? I have much pleasure in conveying to you, on behalf of His Majesty's government, the following declaration of sympathy with Jewish Zionist aspirations, which has been submitted to and approved by the Cabinet. His Majesty's government view with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people and will use their best endeavors to facilitate the achievement of this object, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jew in any other country. I should be grateful if you would bring this declaration to knowledge of the Zionist Federation, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of the existing non-Jewish communities. That's what the letter says. So, and I'm going to show it. I'm going to go back and I'm just reading all of this. 1948, Arab-Israeli War. Hoping to annihilate the new Jewish state, the armies of Egypt, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Iraq invaded the territory partitioned for the Arab state, thus starting the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. The nascent Israeli Defense Force repulsed the Arab nations from part of the occupied territories, thus extending its borders beyond the original UNSCOP partition. By December 1948, Israel controlled most of the portion of Mandate Palestine west of the Jordan River. The remainder of the Mandate consisted of Jordan, the area that came to be called the West Bank, controlled by Jordan, and the Gaza Strip, controlled by Egypt. Prior to and during this conflict, 711,000 Palestinian Arabs fled their original lands to become Palestinian refugees, in part due to a promise from Arab leaders that they'll be able to return when the war is won. Most of Israeli Jews referred to the 1948 Arab-Israeli War as the War of Independence, while most of the Arab citizens of Israel referred to it as the Nakba. The Nakba catastrophe. a reflection of differences in perception of the purpose and outcomes of the war. Mm. Most Israeli Jews refer to the 1948 Arab-Israeli War as the War of Independence, while most of the Arab citizens of Israel refer to it as the Nakba catastrophe, a reflection of differences in perception of the purpose and outcomes of the war. And then, okay, so we're going to look at some pictures now. What did they say? They left black. The war for Israel. When he was asked about peace in the Middle East, the late president of Egypt, Gamal Abdel Nasser, stated, "The Jews will never be able to live here in peace because they left here black but came back white." What does that mean? Why they don't teach you that in church on Sunday? Hey, are they talking about this on Sunday? Bet your TD Jakes never told you this. Ooh. Hey. modern occupation of Israel, 1948 to the present day. Oh, I love this. Let's start here. Khazar Jews related by blood to Kurds. I'm going to try to read this. Israeli scientists have been trying to prove that they are genetically related to the Palestinians. The purpose is to try and justify their claim over the territory. However, some studies show that blank related to the Kurds. In ancient time, the Khazar kingdom was just north of, I don't know what to say, but who are the Kurds? So they originated in south of Russia. Ew, they even broke out the Jewish encyclopedia on them. See? They don't like facts. You know, they definitely don't like facts. Oh, they definitely don't like that. Where they come from again? Okay. That don't look like Israel. What do you know? The encyclopedia. Well, what does this say? What does this say? Okay. I'm gonna read it, so I'm trying to hold it and focus it, but if it's still, hey, I'm reading it for you. Ashkenazim. The Ashkenazim are the Jews whose ancestors lived in German lands. It was among Ashkenazi Jews that the idea of political Zionism emerged, leading ultimately to the establishment of the State of Israel. In the late 1960s, Ashkenazi Jews number some 11 million, about 84% of the world Jewish population. Encyclopedia Americana, 1985. Khazar, an ancient Turkic-speaking people who ruled a large and powerful state in the steppes of north of the Caucasus Mountains from the 7th century to their demise in the mid-11th century AD. In the 8th century, its political and religious head, as well as the greater part of the Khazar nobility, abandoned paganism and converted to Judaism. The Khazars are believed to be the ancestors of most Russian and Eastern European Jews. That's the Encyclopedia Americana, 1985, 2 years before I was born. So, it's 2 years before I was born, so I did not write this. Well, what? Do we have anything else for little kids? What do we have from Johnny? The Jewish Encyclopedia. Khazars, a national group of general Turkic type, independent and sovereign in Eastern Europe between the 7th and 10th century CE. During part of this time, the leading Khazars professed Judaism. In spite of the negligible information of an archaeological nature, the presence of Jewish groups and the impact of Jewish ideas in Eastern Europe are considerable. During the Middle Ages, groups have been mentioned as migrating to Central Europe from the East, often have been referred to as Khazars, thus making it impossible to overlook the possibility that they originated from within the former Khazar Empire. The Encyclopedia Judaica, 1972. Everybody ain't lying on you. Ooh, that rhyme. The Universal Jewish Encyclopedia. Are you mean I'm using these people's own words and records against them? Exactly. The Jewish Encyclopedia. The primary meaning of Ashkenaz and Ashkenazim in Hebrew is Germany and Germans. This may be due to the fact that the home of the ancient ancestors of the Germans is Media. Ooh, Media? And okay, so I've talked about this Medea before. She was a goddess, but I already talked about that. So carrying on, which is the biblical Ashkenaz. Cross is of the opinion that in the early medieval ages, the Khazars were sometimes referred to as Ashkenazim. About 92% of all Jews, or approximately 14,500,000, are Ashkenazim. The Universal Jewish Encyclopedia. Is all these books lying on you? These are what we call receipts. Well, what do we have from Johnny? The New Grolier Encyclopedia. Let's see here. Okay. Khazars. The Khazars, a Turkic people, created a commercial and political empire that dominated substantial parts of South Russia during much of the 7th through 10th centuries. During the 8th century, the Khazar aristocracy and the Kagan king were converted to Judaism. The Khazars established their capital at Atil in the Volga Delta, and for 4 centuries thereafter, this Jewish empire held the balance of power between the Christian Byzantine Empire and the Muslim Caliphate. The fortified Khazar city of Sarkil on the lower Don River was built with Byzantine help and served as a crossroad to Central Asia. The Khazars controlled many of the trade routes to the Orient. Some of the Rahanites, Jewish merchants from Gaul, for example, were accustomed to crossing the Khazar Empire while traveling to and from China and India. During the late 10th and early 11th centuries, an alliance of Byzantines and Russians broke the power of the Khazars in Crimea in 965. Whatever his name is, Svetoslav I, Duke of Kiev, decisively defeated the Khazar army. Further to the east, new waves of Turkic invaders overran the remains of the Khazar state. New Grolier Encyclopedia. Everybody ain't lying on y'all now. Everybody ain't lying on y'all. The Jewish Encyclopedia. Khazars, a non-Semitic. See, because they know that they don't come from Israel. They don't come from Jacob. They don't come from Isaac. Okay? The Khazars don't even come from Esau. At least the Sephardi, at least they come from Esau, so that makes them Semitic, but the Khazars are not. Khazars are non-Semitic, Asiatic, Mongolian. Remember the Mongolian tribal nation who immigrated into Eastern Europe about the 1st century, who were converted as an entire nation to Judaism in the 7th century by expanding Russian nation, which absorbed the entire Khazar population and who account for the presence in Eastern Europe and of the great numbers of Yiddish-speaking Jews in Russia, Poland, Lithuania, Galatia, Bessarabia, and Romania, the Jewish Encyclopedia. This is what their own literature is saying about them, y'all. The 13th tribe. They hate this dude. This is Arthur Koestler. This is, he is Jewish, and he pretty much told the truth about his own people. So they don't like him at all. The large majority of surviving Jews in the world are of Eastern European descent, and thus perhaps mainly of Khazar origin. If so, this would mean that their ancestors came not from the Jordan, but from the Volga, not from Canaan, but from the Caucasus, once believed to be the cradle of the Aryan race, and that genetically they are more closely related to the Hun, the Uighur, and the Magyar tribes than to the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And y'all remember the Huns? Remember the Huns on Mulan? Man, that's those people. Caucasian. Khazars. They changed their names too. The serpent people from earlier centuries of the first millennia, the Khazars of Eastern Europe were known as the diabolical serpent people, and now the nation of Israel has admitted that its people are indeed the Khazars. My little note. I reposted these pics because as I was editing, I couldn't remember if I had placed these pics in the book, but to the ones who think I already seen these pictures, I do apologize, but too bad. I reuse pics to reinforce what I am stating. So if you see a pic in the book twice, it wasn't a mistake. That's real. All right, so we're going to be picking up from a lesson that I had started way back on page 445 called The Last Captivity of Israel. So picking up from there, Luke 21:24. And so, one moment. Quick costume change. Had to get comfortable because, it is getting late. So probably read for about another, almost an hour here and be done. So, yeah, I had to get comfortable. Luke 21, King James Version. The Last Captivity of Israel, picking up from page 445. Luke 21, King James Version, verse 24. Jerusalem will be trampled on by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. What do you think that means? The imposter pastors and Palestinians are in the land of promise called Israel. After the war, only 14 to 25%, depending on the estimate, of the Arab population remained in Israel. When Israel refused the re-entry of most, and when subsequent offers of partial misspelled word. When Israel refused the re-entry of most, and when subsequent offers of partial repatriation were rejected, they became refugees. Meanwhile, immigration of Holocaust survivors and Jewish, Khazarian, and Sephardic refugees from Arab lands doubled Israel's population within 1 year of its independence. Over the following years, approximately 850,000 Sephardi and Khazarian and Pashto Jewish bastards fled or were expelled from surrounding Arab countries and Iran. Of these, about 680,000 settled in Israel. Israel's Jewish population continued to grow at a very high rate for years, fed by waves of Jewish Khazarian immigration from around the world, most notably the massive immigration wave of Soviet and Pashto Jewish, which arrived to Israel in the early 1990s. following the dissolution of the USSR, who, according to the law of return, note this law cannot be found anywhere in the Hebrew scriptures called the Bible, were entitled to become Israeli citizens upon arrival. About 380,000 arrived in 1990 through 91 alone. Since 1948, Israeli, Khazarian, and Sephardic impostor Jewish have been involved in a series of major military conflicts, including the 1956 Suez War, 1967 Six-Day War. Scam, the Most High was not with them. They had earthly army help from the bully they use to this day, a massacre. 1973 Yom Kippur War, 1982 Lebanon War, and 2006 Israel-Lebanon conflict, as well as a nearly constant series of ongoing minor conflicts to preserve its national interests that they start. And look at what's going on today. These impostors have been also embroiled in an ongoing conflict with the Palestinians and the territories which have been under Israeli impostor control since the Six-Day War in 1967. Despite the signing of the Oslo Accords on September 3, 1993, and the ongoing efforts of Israeli impostors, Palestinian, and global peacemakers, despite the constant security threats, Israeli impostors, Khazars, has thrived economically throughout the 1980s, 90s, and present. And what's funny is I thought that once the Jews were brought back into their land, that there would be no more study of war. Ever since them people been back in that land, there's been nothing but war. So how are they the people? Who was the liar? Is God a liar, or is somebody lying? I know God ain't lying. True Israel will return. The time will soon come when the true Israelites are called back into the land by Yeshua HaMashiach. Jeremiah 3, King James Version, verse 18. In those days the house of Judah shall walk with the house of Israel, and they shall come together out of the land of the north to the land that I have given for an inheritance unto your fathers. The land of the north. Jeremiah 16, verse 15. But they will say, as surely as the Most High lives, who brought the Israelites up out of the land of the north, and out of all the countries where he had banished them, for I will restore them to the land I gave their forefathers. Jeremiah 30, verse 3. The days are coming, declares the Most High, when I will bring my people Israel and Judah back from captivity and restore them to the land I gave their forefathers to possess, says Ahiah. Jeremiah 31, verse 8. See, I will bring them from the land of the north and gather them from the ends of the earth, because we were scattered due to slavery. Among them will be the blind and the lame, expectant mothers and women in labor. A great throng will return. Jeremiah 50, verse 4. In those days, at that time, declares Ahiah, the people of Israel and the people of Judah together will go in tears to seek the Most High, their mighty one. They will ask the way to Zion and turn their faces toward it. They will come and bind themselves to the Most High in an everlasting covenant that will not be forgotten. Ezekiel 37, verse 22. I will make them one nation in the land. On the mountains of Israel there will be one king over all of them, and they will never again be two nations or be divided into two kingdoms. Amos 9, verse 15. I will plant Israel in their own land, never again to be uprooted from the land I have given them, says the Most High, your mighty one. Going over the timeline. And this is just going over different events. Notice how it count down when it's BC counts down. Now we're getting into the AD. Yeshua was born in Bethlehem, 31 AD. Yeshua was crucified, buried, and resurrected. And I gave you that and the things we should know about Christ section. I gave you when he started his ministry in 27 AD. This information was available. It's just people in the church are lazy. They don't want to do no research. They can find this out. He said, if you seek me, he gonna show up. Seek him and you shall find. Publius Cornelius Tacitus, senator, historian of the Roman Empire, a Roman historian named Tacitus, who lived about CE 90, said, many assert that the Hebrews are a race of Ethiopian origins. J.A. Rogers, Jamaican author, journalist, and historian, commented, for the Romans to have considered them Ethiopians is a clear indication of their color because the Ethiopians are a known black people. See, and that's why I don't use that term black, because see, black, it just gives the color. It doesn't talk about the bloodline. It doesn't talk about the bloodline. Tacitus also said that the Hebrews were Egyptians who left Egypt during a disease outbreak. I had to clean my lens, so let's go focus. The Romans said the Jews were black. Tacitus, first century Roman historian. Many again say that the Jews, were a race of Ethiopian origin, who in the time of King Cephas were driven by fear and hatred of their neighbors to seek a new dwelling place. Where did they seek a new dwelling place? In Africa. When they ran down into Africa, remember I already told you that? Source, the Histories Book 5, C. 110 CE by Tacitus. I'm sorry. So I give these people the names. Look at his nose. I give these people the names that I be wanting to give them. I know his name is Taticus. I know that. I know his name is Taticus. I know. But for me, his name is Tacitus. Because he needs to see his on out of here. Yeah, so like I said, I give these people the names that I want them to have. But like I said, I know his name is Taticus. Historians know who the children of Israel truly are. What bothers me is these people never want to just come right out and say the truth, which is Christ and the children of Israel are the Negroes, natives, and Latinos of today. They always have to be subtle, driven by fear and hatred of their neighbors to seek a new dwelling place. What a load of crap. We fled by the millions into Africa, in which some of us look Ethiopian but are not. We fled our native homeland, Israel, due to Romans, white folk, his people, the one I just read, surrounding Jerusalem with their armies, cutting off our resources in and out of the city. They unlawfully and forcibly took over and killed whoever did not leave Israel. Their historians later tried to dress the situation up to hide the dirty deeds of their own. Just like today, with the removal of slavery out of newer books taught in schools, elementary through high school, they elite white supremacy powers, now try to portray Negroes as if we were indentured servants, which was not true. They have also watered down their deeds done against our brothers, the natives. This was recorded in history around 50 years after Christ. This man thought the children of Israel were a race of Ethiopians based on what we look like, which is close but not accurate. Consider Jeremiah 13, verse 23, King James Version, Amos 9, verse 7, King James Version. The Ethiopians are dark, black skin, just like the Negro, but we are not the same according to DNA. Can we change our skin color? And I already told you about him. The Africans who conquered Rome, Septimius Severus, the African emperor of Rome. Septimius Severus, April 11th, 145 through February 4th, 211, also known as Severus, was a Roman emperor from 193 to 211. Severus was born in Leptis Magna in the Roman province of Africa. As a young man, he advanced through the cursus honorum, the customary succession of offices under the reigns of Marcus Aurelius and Commodus. Severus seized power after the death of Emperor Pertinax in 193 during the year of the five emperors. About 200 years after Christ, the Roman kingdom received a deadly wound. Around 193 AD to the late 1600s, black people, Negroes, ruled Europe. Europe is named after a black queen named Europa. This period of time is called the Dark Ages. People don't like to talk about this period of history, even on tours in Europe. When you ask tour directors, they tell you they can't talk about that or try to divert away from the true history. During the Renaissance, which means rebirth of what? Everything was whitewashed. Pictures were repainted, and even a new image of Christ was rebirthed. If you look at the family crest, it paints a different picture. The royals in the palace today in the UK are imposters as well, and they pay the original family off to keep their mouths shut. Yep. See, the ones in the royal in the palace today, they are from the Wettin dynasty. They are not from the Stuart dynasty. They're not from the Stuart dynasty. Israelites ruled Europe for 1,000 years. That's why they called it Dark Ages. See? That's beautiful, isn't it? That's so beautiful. Very much so. European Dark Ages 600 to 1600. This Germany. Look at these look. Morir, Germany. You see them that's black. See? That's black. Negro. Black. Archbishop of Munich. Black. Cause these they coat of arms, so they lions with wings, so it's kind of Babylonian, but notice all dark skinned. Yeah. Up here goes King James. The real King James. The real one. King James was a staunch opponent against the establishment known as the Roman Catholic Church, making quotes such as, "Rome is the seat of the Antichrist. King James the Sixth and the First, AP, and the Pope is Antichrist." King James the Sixth and the First. He was the sixth and the first because he was like, I think he was the first to unite England, Ireland, and Scotland. It was one of them lands. It wasn't England. It was out of Ireland and Scotland, and I think it was Ireland. That's why he's the first. But, Scotland and England, he's the sixth. But still, it's the Stuart dynasty. The scripture forbiddeth to worship the image of anything that God created, King James. Here we have listed just a few of many of the quotes of King James in reference to what he thought of the Roman Catholic Church, then known as the Papists. See? The Papists. See? They didn't always go by the Catholic Church. That's the real King James. This is the real King James, the sixth and the first of his name. Today he is depicted as a white homosexual, which is a lie. He was a black man that ruled England, Scotland, and Ireland all at one time. He united all three under his rule. He is responsible for the Bible you read today, which is the 66 books. It is commonly reported that there were 54 translators from all over the world selected to translate to the translation, but only 47 actually participated in the work. The Bible originally included over 14 books that were removed, called the Apocrypha. But the Apocrypha reveals things about certain people, Roman Catholics, who at one time were called the Papists, which they don't want to be known. About 40 to 50 years after King James was beheaded, they took the Apocrypha out of the Bible, but told you, I said us, but told you in their seminary theologian schools that the Apocrypha was not scripturally inspired. Lies. Don't ever let anyone tell you what is scripturally inspired or not. If you claim to be a believer, you should be able to try the Spirit by the Spirit. You have the power to discern the Bible. And I always prove that the Apocrypha is real because I could prove that just with Esther alone. Just with Esther alone. Um, if you have that little Bible app, that brown Bible app on your phone, go to Esther. Go to the book of Esther, and Esther goes up to, I think, what, 3 in the King James version. But when you select the King K, look for KJVA. That's the King James Version Apocrypha. Look for that, and then um, go back to Esther and go to chapter 3 and look at Esther. Or well, it might not be. It might not say. It might not. It depends on what version you have. It might just say the editions of Esther, but in mine, it show up as the rest of Esther, because it starts. I think. Yeah, I think it stops on 3. But anyways, you can find that out just by doing simple research. Back to Africa, George E. Lichblau, author of Jewish Roots in Africa, had this to say in his book about the Hebrew dispersion into Africa. Pressed under sweeping regional conflicts, Jews settled as traders and warriors in Yemen, the Horn of Africa, Egypt, the Kingdom of Cush and Nubia, North African Punic settlements, Carthage and Volubilis, and Drake, and areas now covered by Mauritania. More migrants followed these early Jewish settlers to northern Africa. Think of Liberia and Freedom Town, both rebuilt in Africa by slaves that couldn't be contended with. More history. Look, I get my phone to focus. Greek historian philosopher Arian of Nicomedia, 86 AD to 160 AD, reports that 300 Negroes were annually brought down the Nile River in his time. 3,000 reports that 3,000 Negroes were annually brought down the Nile River in his time. Look at that. Judah or Ouida, Slave Coast. See? Ouida, Judah. Don't play. It is estimated that over 18 million black Hebrew Jews went through the Arabic period of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade. As I showed you earlier, Judah was a kingdom, and right by Judah was Levi and Benjamin and Benin. Craniofacial traits. Craniofacial traits. According to George W. Gill and other modern forensic anthropologists, physical traits of Negroid crania are generally distinct from those of the Caucasoid and Mongoloid races. They assert that they can identify a Negroid skull with an accuracy of up to 95%. However, Alan H. Goodman cautions that this precision estimate is often based on methodologies using subsets of samples. He also argues that scientists have a professional and ethical duty to avoid such biological analysis since they could potentially have socio-political effects. Although widely used in forensic anthropology, some have also challenged the accuracy of craniofacial anthropometry vis-a-vis different human populations that have developed in close proximity to one another and those of mixed ethnic heritage. Since the distinguishing racial traits are not set until puberty, they are also difficult to ascertain in pre-adolescent skulls. The Negroes don't come from Ham, so there have to be some differences, some difference genetically between Ham and Shem. Forensic anthropologists began to study skin pigmentation against what they call this cranial information, and they concluded that even though you have the same skin, the cranium is different. Hmm. They can recognize a race of people up to 95% accuracy based on their skulls. This information even provides location of distant ancestors. Just because you have dark skin does not mean you are a Negro. You could be a dark skinned Caucasoid. Yeah, so I'm sure it's trust the science until it's used against them. Like I said, you can always pause this and read it for yourself. In modern craniofacial anthropometry, Negroid describes features that typify skulls of black people. These include a broad and round nasal cavity, no no dam or nasal seal, quoset hut shaped nasal bones, notable facial projection in the jaw and mouth area, prognathism, a rectangular shaped palate, a square or rectangular eye orbit shape, a large interorbital distance, a more undulating supraorbital ridge, and large megadontic teeth. See, nah, they must. I thought that was because they was going to them fake dentists and getting them fake teeth put in their mouth. Skin pigmentation. Skin pigmentation in Negroid population varies from very dark brown to light brown, as dark skin is also relatively common in human groups that have historically not been defined as Negroid, including many populations in both Africa and Asia. It is only when present with other typical Negroid physical traits such as broad facial features, Negroid cranial and dental characteristics, prognathism, afro-textured hair, and neoteny that it has been used in Negroid classification. Populations with frequently dark skin, yet on the whole lacking the suite of Negroid physical traits, were thus usually not regarded as Negroid, but instead as either dark Caucasoid, Hamitic / Ethiopic, and Arabic, or Australoid, depending on their own salient physical attributes. By contrast, populations with relatively light skin, yet generally possessing typical Negroid physical characteristics such as Khoisan, were still regarded as Negroid. Egyptologists and cranial experts. Oh, one of my favorites. The Black Image in the White Mind, page 74 through 75. In the 1840s, Dr. Morton collaborated with George R. Gliddon, an Egyptologist who provided him with mummy heads and information about the racial significance of Egyptian tomb inscriptions. In Crania Aegyptiaca, published in 1844, Morton pointed out that both cranial and archaeological evidence showed that the Egyptians were not Negroes, as abolitionists and colonizationists had maintained, and that in fact blacks had been relegated to the same servile position in ancient Egypt as in modern America. So you know what that means, right? So they took these mummy heads from the slaves that was in Egypt, and then they took the skulls from the slaves that was in Egypt. They took the skulls from the slaves that was here in America, and they compared them. Found out, hey, these is a match. Both of these match, but neither one of these match these mummy skulls, these Egyptian skulls. That's because we are the children of Israel. Crania Aegyptiaca, page 66.8, in his conclusions, Negroes were numerous in Egypt, but their social position in ancient time was the same that it is now, that of servants and slaves. In the 1800s, a study was done to see where Negroes originated from, but only to try and prove that Negroes were African, because up until that point in time, it was said that Negroes and Egyptians were the same people. These two men, one being an anthropologist and the other was an Egyptologist, concluded after studying over 150 skulls that Egyptians and Negroes were not the same people. In fact, it was determined that the Negro slaves in America are ancestors to the same slaves that were in Egypt, just as the Bible says. Negroes are not from Ham. This is the proof. No more emotional opinions. This is a fact. You know what a fact is? You know what a fact is? Craniofacial traits. Variation in craniofacial form between humans has been found to be largely due to differing patterns of biological inheritance. Modern cross-analysis of osteological variables and genome-wide SNPs has identified specific genes which control this craniofacial development. Of these genes, DCHS2, RUNX2, RUNX2, GLI3, PAX1, PAX1, and PAX3, PAX3 were found to determine nasal morphology, whereas EDAR impacts chin protrusion. Then it gives some sources here. Let me go back up so I can show you what I read. Okay. And we're going to start here at skin pigmentation. See, these are facts. You like receipts, don't you? Like evidence. Right. Evidence. There you go. Mm-hmm. DNA evidence. Dana. Rock-a-bye baby on the treetop. Going to the clinic to find out who was on top. DNA does not lie, and the West African and authentic African have two different sets of DNA haplogroups. This proves people with this specific haplogroup, E3A, E1B1A, from their father are direct descendants of Hebrews. This is why the Bible says, "And with you there shall be a man of every tribe, every one head of the house of his fathers." Numbers 1, verse 4, King James Version. Because the man carries the bloodline with the Y chromosome. This is also why the woman takes the man's last name, because the name is carried on by the male child. If your family line was not infiltrated by the white man through the slave trade, you could trace your lineage back to Hebrew DNA haplogroup E3A, EB, E1B1A. Judah scattered worldwide. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Allah da Equiano witness, one creator, many offerings, particularly at full moon. Some offerings were made with bitter herbs. Circumcision was practiced, and offerings were made in the same pattern as the Jewish people of the Bible. They had priests cause some of the other African tribes uncircumcised who ate without washing hands. He explained to one of his shipmate friends that his people were the people of the Bible. Equiano was an 11-year-old boy with a 3-year-old sister. They were taken captive as slaves and shipped to the islands where they were split up. Later on in his life, he was introduced to Christianity by the British, eventually learning how to read and speak English. After discussions with people around him, he concluded that the people, children of Israel, are his ancestors spoken of in the Bible. He ended up buying his freedom and he authored a book about the tribe he is from, Igbo. Before the Christians came and introduced the Igbo to some forms of paganism, they followed the Torah, and many still do to this day, dealing with marriage and circumcision and the Sabbath. But they're not perfect either because I've done my research on the Igbos, and at one point in time, they had a horrible practice um, in regards to twins. If a woman gave birth to twins, oof, but, I don't think they do it no more. So I ain't even no need to bring it up. Igbo tribes, excuse me, when the missionaries came to Nigeria to evangelize, they were dumbfounded to discover that the Igbo people practiced many Hebraic Jewish customs which they could not have learned from anyone else. From ancient it had to come from ancient practice of their people from antiquity, for they had no Bibles and met no one with a Bible until the missionaries came along. They found that the Igbos practiced eating of animals that meet the biblically clean requirements, as well as the complete draining of blood from the animals, as well as other laws concerning kashrut or kosher animals. And that's just proof, because I would always say, before became slaves and was brought over here, our ancestors did not eat pork. Our ancestors did not eat the Nile crocodile. Our ancestors did not eat coons, possums, and all this other nasty stuff. Ew. Has a concept of clean and unclean, acceptable and abominable or taboo. Animal sacrifice, like until the Levitical sacrificial system, belief in a supreme, all powerful deity, the Chukwu above all other deities, circumcision on the eighth day, as well as had the naming ceremony that 8 day old child, giving names that bear the name or title of God within it. Separation of menstruating women, the keeping of a lunar calendar, Shemitah and Jubilee years, the annulment of debt and servitude every 7 and 50 years, burying their dead facing east, the direction of Jerusalem and the Promised Land. Sitting Shiva, 7 day mourning period where one sits on low stools, remains unkempt, and shave their head in grief, belief in resurrection. Sending of the bodies home Sending of the bodies home of Igbos who die outside of Igbo land to be buried like Joseph and Jacob, desiring not to be buried in a pagan or foreign land. Hospitality like unto the traditions and legends known of Abraham, offering water, meal, and lodging to travelers. Levirate type marriages, brothers marrying deceased brothers' wives to carry on the brothers' names. Marriage negotiations, onye aka ibe, between families, like unto the story of Isaac and Rebekah, a type of city's refuge where Igbo, who has committed a crime, can seek refuge in his mother's natal home, known in Igbo as Ikuine. Shunning of those who willingly break Igbo laws against sexual perversion, incest, and the like. They had to marry among their people but outside their immediate tribal clan. A rule of Torah law was developed and was passed down by Erie, rite of passage into adulthood. Governance of the people by a conglomeration, conglomeration, conglomeration of tribal. See, I'm getting tired. Governance of the people by a conglomeration of tribal elders and judges prior to the institution of kingship dynasties. And it's 1:24 in the morning. Yes, it's 1:24 in the morning. Y'all see that? Just a quick little break. Y'all see that? Yes, I keep my heat on hell. This is the temperature it is inside of my home, and you see where it can't even go no. I keep a hot house. Both of my grannies and well, both of my family are from the south, so my grandmothers would keep a hot house. And I'm telling you, this is how you keep people out of your house. Always keep a hot house, especially if you got big people, because big people do not like heat. And so, if you always have a hot house, then nobody's going to come over, which is why I never have any company. See? Yeah, so you come over here, you gon' sweat. Alright, Igbo tribes. The coronation of the kings have rituals and customs that closely resemble that of the coronation of kings of Judah and Israel. These, among many other Jewish laws and customs, were found to be kept by the Igbo people, and sadly, the Christian missionaries forced them to abandon many of these Hebraic practices because, though they resembled biblical worship of God, they believe many have been done away with due to the advent of Messiah, and they believe they practice these customs unto pagan gods and as such should be abandoned. See? The law's done away with. We ain't under that no more. See? But they brought on by them Catholic people. Y'all gonna be the ones to bust hell wide open. A lot of you Sunday preachers, a lot of you Sunday pastors that think like this, that will go over there and see them doing what they doing, and then you know try to force them to abandon many of these Hebraic practices because though they resembled biblical worship of God, though they resembled biblical worship of God, they believed, they believed many have been done away with. Didn't I just say that? Nah, done away with. We ain't under that no more. We ain't got to follow that no more. As soon as you go to Matthew 5:17 through 19, he tells you, as long as the heavens and earth is here, not one jot or tittle shall pass away from the law. Comprehension skills, you know. But I know, I thank God that I was hooked on phonics before I went into Toledo public school system, because being hooked on phonics, that taught me how to read and comprehend and to write. That's why I know this. That's why I know what I'm talking about. Because I know how to read, and I know how to comprehend what I'm reading, and I know how to write. I don't just be sitting in a book for 20 plus years and somehow never coming across none of this stuff. But I know the Lord. You speak to the Lord daily. He ain't never told you none of this. Mm, mm, mm. The Igbos are slowly beginning to return to the pre-missionary practices, desiring to return to their Hebraic roots. Yeah, one Igbo man named Avram, a cantor of the Nastari Jewish community in Nigeria, said, in a nutshell, every law stated in the Torah was being practiced by our forefathers before the advent of Christianity. Because the Bible does not teach Christianity. Meaning they was doing this stuff before them people came over. Except that our fathers went into idol worship. See, they even know where they went off. But they still kept the tradition as was handed over to them by their forefathers. The false image, Cesare Borgias. Leonardo and the child of Cardinal Rodrigo Borgia by long-term mistress Venosa de Catani, who would later become Pope Alexander VI, was so close it was believed they were lovers. Leonardo and the child of Cardinal Rodrigo Borgia by long-term mistress Venosa de Cantini, who would later become Pope Alexander VI, was so close it was believed they were lovers. Under the power of the Catholic Church, Pope Alexander VI decided that he would have his son, Cesare Borgia, used as the model for Jesus in paintings that Da Vinci was commissioned to do. Our Lord and Savior. Let me see. Like I said, you could pause these. You could read them for yourself. See, he was a real man. He was a real man. That's why he told you don't worship graven images. See? Because when you start to do that, this is what happens. No. Clear as day when you going to talk to a Christian. Bishop, you have to take these pictures down. You're psychologically damaging your churchmen, further in promoting white supremacy, Christian nonsense. It doesn't matter what Jesus looked like, and my church is just fine. Just as stupid as the days old. This is why it matters. Now, children, which doll is the bad doll? We all done seen them, and all the time, even the black kids choose the black kids. It'd be so sad. No. Just as dumb. Look, all of this is Roman Catholic attire and Babylonian. They used to dress the same. Babylonian too. And like the KKK, all they had to do is put the hoods on. Oh my heavens, the fact checkers are gonna get me. See, this is not, Robert F. Kennedy said this, right? He did said, but John F. Kennedy did not say that. His brother said it. And so the fact checkers will try to get you because they be like, you're not using the right person. And I think I'm going to stop here. This is where I'm going to pick up. I am praying for our safety. I'm praying for your safety, my safety, your family's safety, my family's safety, you know, as they roll back all of this DEI, stuff. And I mean, it seems like like I said, if you're not a straight white man, that's what they, it's like they ain't got nothing for you. Everybody getting their wake up call. But this is what needs to happen. This is what needs to happen. You know why? Because pride comes before destruction. And they are going to have their wake up call. See, how I look at this is Esau's last attempt. Things are getting dire for them. And this is their last attempt to do whatever they can to thwart the they can't stop what's coming, but they're gonna try, and that's why he investing all this money into this space program and all of this stuff. I'm telling you, and then I be getting so like, it's like, do people pay attention anymore? How many times do people have to tell you that Trump is not a Christian? He's not a Christian. I heard it on the speech. He said something about, oh yeah, Christians. I'm not Christian, but you're a Christian, and vote, or something about this be the last time you have to do it, or something like that. He's not a Christian. But as far as, the immigration and things of that nature, I wouldn't want it to happen, but I definitely think that, the Latino community needs their nigga wake up call. To be reminded, like, hey, you think you white, but you're not. Think they're gonna accept you. They're not. That Indian dude, he found out they released him. No. You cannot. And then whoever that black man, whoever that, I don't even wanna research. I don't even wanna research his name, or I don't wanna know his name. But the one that got up there and tried to be a imitation Martin Luther King, you suck, bro. If you ever see this, you suck. Your sermon sucked. I didn't even watch it, but even Trump was looking at you like you a fool. You suck. Like, you can even tell, like, it's not authentic. You got up there and hooped and hollered, and it just wasn't good, man. It wasn't good. You and these people and y'all dreams. Because I seen Martin Luther King's daughter trying to correct somebody, talking about her daddy was fighting for your civil rights. Man, please, I would love to talk to her. I would love to talk to her. Your daddy was a sellout. That's what your daddy was. And your daddy didn't fight for my civil rights. Your daddy struck a deal with the Jewish people that funded the civil rights movement. Your daddy was used as a face. Your daddy wouldn't even use the first black woman who was dark skinned, who refused to get up. I already got a video on Marley. It was the first one I did. Your daddy is the reason why we in this mess today. taking that money, integrating us into a burning house, just like he said. And then when he was going to go get with Malcolm X, they pew-pewed him. Because Malcolm was right. We should be celebrating a Malcolm X Day. That's what we should be celebrating, not Martin Luther King. Talking about something her daddy was fighting for they civil rights. Man, out of here. That's your damn mind. Your daddy would, yeah. All of them was partiers. Big freaks. They was down with the get down. The good old boys. Him, Jesse Jack a nigga, Al Sharp Tongue. Yeah, they was thick as thieves. I heard stories. So yeah, no, I don't like that. And to me, it seemed like they live off their daddy's legacy. You know that I mean that, but that's just my opinion. You know, your dad supposed to be a reverend, but he up here worshiping uh, the Hindu gods, following after Thurman, who he introduced him to Gandhi. Your daddy was used just like Gandhi was used to come in and make the people docile while the government beat up on them. I've already said all of this. Your dad was a sellout. I definitely, yeah. I would love to talk. Love to. Anyway, some of these people, to me, it's like, it's like people can't have an opinion or anything like that, because, oh, yeah, it was about Sexy Red taking a picture or something with her dad. It's just like, girl, get out of here. And that way she's still keeping your dad relevant. Because this younger generation, they don't care about nothing. They don't care about nothing. You see what they do down in Atlanta on MLK weekend? Them fags don't care about your daddy either. They use it as an excuse to get together and have orgies, do narcotics, and have gang wars. Oh, I'm sorry. They call them balls, but they're gang wars because these people are like mob. They're like the mob to me. The house fathers are the gangsters. They can make calls. They can, they have access to people that could do you harm. It's just real. And then, the house mothers are their malls or they girls. And some of them be dangerous too. Just as dangerous. And their kids, the kids in their houses or whatever, those are the thugs. So, but anyway, I have to go because it's 1:46 in the morning. I'm just sitting up here running my mouth. But no, I like them. Baby, if you only knew what they did in celebration of your daddy down in Atlanta on MLK weekend. All kind of orgies. Nothing about MLK. Nothing about him. It's just a big excuse to party and fight. Because that's all they do is fight. Oh, but I got a video coming about that too. It's probably not gonna be like, but I don't care because the the Black LGBTQIA community has never accepted me. I never was looking for acceptance. I've always been a loner. I've always been on my own. So I don't need nobody to accept me. I accept me. And so, Yeah, so I don't have the same experiences as, like a lot of them do. I never had no gay house father or mother or anything like that. Mm-mm. No. So my views are a little bit, well, a lot of bit different than most, and I'm okay with that. Cause I mean, I'll be okay with it. It's usually the other people that be having their panties up in a bunch. But anyway, I hope you have a blessed day tomorrow. Um, and thank you for your time. Thank you for kicking it, chilling with me. And I hope you like the content. I know it's not, I know I'm not talking about Bishop TD Jake mistake, the TD Jake the Snake mistake, and this young blood character. No, I ain't talking about that, or Tasha K and Larry Reed and that other guy. I don't do commentary like that. This is what I'm here to do. I'm here to show people what I have learned and what I have been working on. So that's what my lane is. And I thank you for merging over into my lane. Have a good night. Peace. Shalom.